Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship My Money Share. Adam, it seems like we have not talked in a week. What is going on?
Yeah, it's been a while. Not a whole lot. Finishing up moving into my new apartment, so we'll have a new background on shows starting on Wednesday, I guess. So that's pretty exciting. But other than that, not a whole lot.
Very nice. Speaking of exciting, boy, that Monday slate. One game at 4 o'clock, 3 games after 9:40. Yes, that is 9:40 there on the East Coast. Just so happened that it's all West Coast games, and the Phillies are the one team that's out there playing. That's not a West Coast team, so kind of an odd day. I couldn't figure out why they had this set up unless somehow they thought tonight was going to be one of the nights for the NBA Finals. It's the only thing I could think of.
It's the baseball draft.
Oh, I didn't even think of that at all. So, what? They just don't want front offices and people to have to travel, or
I don't know what the reasoning was. I don't know if maybe they're just trying to draw more attention to the actual draft. Huh. I don't really know what the reasoning was, but that's the only thing that I can think of is that it was because like the games that are playing are like all after the draft ends.
Right, and that's a good point because I did see a couple headlines there on the old ESPN.com talking about the MLB draft. It just never occurred to me because, gosh, I mean, the NFL draft is pretty boring after about the first 10 picks. I can't even imagine watching baseball unless you totally follow along with the College World Series. But even then, what is the College World Series? Only has what, 34, 32 teams in it? 16?
Yeah, I mean, it's just totally different with baseball because, you can get excited about your picks for whatever team you like, but you're probably not going to see them, if ever, for 3 or 4 years. So,
right.
Like the Orioles have the number one pick. I was excited about who they took. I still probably won't see the guy play for a couple of years.
There you go. All right, well, let's get in on to today's slate. We have a 15-gamer. That was a long way of getting there, saying it's all back to normal. It is starting at 7:05 Eastern. You can check out, I'll have these spotlight hitters and stacks articles posted probably shortly after I get this posted, but check that out. Second paragraph for that, you're going to find the link and instructions on how to get $30 on Yahoo with your initial deposit bonus. Come in on that link, use the promo code OSMO, and you'll get $30 in YSRP, that is Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which are just as good as cash. All right, Adam, going game by game here. Let me get the old schedule up here. First one we have is Ronaldo Lopez going against Steven Strasburg. Lopez, we may need some cheap pitching. I don't think so, but he's 5,200 there on DK. A 6+ ERA on the season. Not exactly the easiest of matchups for him going against the Nationals. I was looking back to and thank you, Fangraphs, for change. They finally got the feature I wanted, but now I'm not ready for it, so this will be fun. Have you seen their new feature where they have custom date range, literally by date?
Yeah, that's a really awesome feature. I haven't started using it yet, just because I'm set in my ways. But that's definitely a feature that ever since I started using Fangraphs, I wish
we had. And now I'm the same way. I'm like, I trying to do the math. If I wanted 2 years, when do I go back to? So I believe this is a two-year stretch here, but if we look at Ronaldo Lopez, he has just been a bit of a mess. Just a 17% strikeout rate against lefties. He has a 40% hard contact rate. Just not really something that's exciting. Gives up way too many home runs, and he's going against the Nationals offense that is starting to get more healthy. They're still missing a few players, and of course, a couple guys are no longer with the team in Harper and Ryan Murphy. But you've got Turner, Eaton, Rendon, Soto, Adams, Dozier, Víctor Robles. Some solid guys there. I really like the Nationals. I'm considering them for one of my featured stacks. Is there anything other than the $5,200 price tag on DK that intrigues you about Lopez?
Revenge narrative, but no.
Oh, come on. We're not doing that.
No, it's a tough match. The price tag is all that there is. I mean, you do have a 25% strikeout percentage to righties. You have a predominantly right-handed Washington lineup, and he's got more talent than a lot of $5,200 pitchers that I've rostered. But outside of that, it's purely a price play. You get some upside. You also get a ton of risk.
Yeah, and if you go back in his game logs, he had like a 4-game stretch at the end of April where he looked decent and had some good numbers. He's gone negative, I think, twice since then. And I don't even know that he's been in double digits. So I was hoping he was kind of turning the corner. It looks like Lucas Giolito has, but no such luck there for Lopez. On the other side, we do have Steven Strasburg checking in here with a 75 degrees at first pitch. It's been kind of nice here in the DC area. He's coming in at 11,500. We don't have FanDuel pricing up just yet, but he is 58 on Yahoo. He's going to be coming in as one of the most expensive options across the board. Decent matchup plus no DH. How are you feeling about Strasburg? If we look at DK, there are 6 other pitchers that are 10,000, 6 total pitchers that are 10,000 or more. He is at 11.5 and the highest.
I really like him. It's that there are some other good pitchers that are a little bit less expensive. You have Blake Snell in the same price range, but then if you go down a little bit further, you have Castillo on DraftKings, $1,400 less. You have the fraudulent Noah Syndergaard facing the Giants. They're a team that he might actually be able to have success against. He's almost $2,000 less. You have Tanaka. You have some other options that you can go to. But if I can get to Strasburg, I do really like him. I think, and I didn't mention Ryu for a little bit less either. So there's a lot of talented pitching on this slate. Chris Paddock's on there. It's certainly not a necessity, but I do think that Strasburg has taken some steps forward this season and is an even better pitcher than we'd seen in the past. He has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 31.3%, 2.95 xFIP. PCRA is the third best behind Garrett Cole and Max Scherzer. He's been, legitimately great. He's got a perfectly fine match up against the White Sox.
Yeah, and the White Sox strike out the 4th most against righties, 25.4 this season. And in fact, this calendar year, depending on how you want to look at that. Moving along here to our next game, we've got the Atlanta Braves going into Pittsburgh to take on the Pirates. Steven Brault, 6,400 there on DK. No thank you under any circumstances. Max Fried, very intrigued by him. He is 7,800. Pittsburgh doesn't strike out a ton, but it's still been a little bit more than they have in the past. But this is a nice ballpark shift away from SunTrust Park into PNC Park. It's going to be 75 at first pitch here as well. On DK, you can get Fried at $38. That is a really nice price point. Brault coming in at the minimum, but again, I'm not intrigued by him. I know Fried is one of the guys that you like to look towards. The Pirates do have a few righties that we haven't seen as much of recently, with Brian Reynolds, who's the switch hitter, but he's up now. It looks like ensconced in the lineup. You have Kevin Newman. I think, was it Frazier? No, Frazier's a lefty. You've got, there's one other guy. I'm losing my mind. I can't think of who it is, but Diaz, Elias Diaz. What do you want to do here with Fried? I think he's probably going to be in my top 4, if not top 5, most popular plays on DK, because we need 2 pitchers.
Yeah, I like the ballpark, of course, going into PNC. The Pirates aren't as good against left-handed pitching as they are against righties. Fried is, I think, a good pitcher. Not as much strikeout upside so far this season as I expected. He's only struck out 21.9% of hitters, but he has limited walks, which has always been an issue for him. He has one of the lowest barrels per batted ball event of any qualified starter this year at just 3.3%. Which leads to pretty respectable 3.55 PCRA. He's been good, and it hasn't been the most useful for DFS purposes because of those strikeout numbers and because sites have priced him up pretty quickly. But I think on this particular slate, you're getting a nice combination of a nice matchup against Pittsburgh, a very reasonable price tag, and a good pitcher in Fried.
All right, and then with regards to Brault, any interest in him? Seems to have a bit of a home run problem.
Yeah, not really much interest there. If you're going to take a risk on a cheap pitcher, I would rather look to like a Pablo Lopez or, even a much cheaper Reynaldo Lopez.
All right, continuing on, we have Masahiro Tanaka up there in Toronto. Decent chance we do see the roof open there in the Rogers Center. On the other side, it's going to be Clayton Richard. Tanaka coming in at 9,300, Richard at 58. Tanaka would be the guy I would lean towards in this one. On Yahoo, he is at $49. So that's a little bit intriguing. Any interest at all in Richard? Or is it going to be just Tanaka for you from this duo of hurlers?
Just Tanaka for me. Really dangerous matchup for Richard. Not a particularly good pitcher either. Tanaka, it is a favorable matchup. Toronto continues to just not be very good offensively, and there are some strikeouts there. I think that it might be tough to get to Tanaka just compared to, guys like Paddock and Snell and Strasburg if you can find the money. But, I do think that it's a good spot, and I don't have any issues with him.
I want to have 2019 Adam go talk to 2018 Adam, or even 2017 Adam, who did like to take Clayton Richard against a heavily lefty Dodgers lineup, if I'm remembering correctly, back when he was a Padre.
Yeah,
that happened, right?
Yeah, Richard has always been good against lefties.
Yes, I was remembering. I sometimes you forget, you repeat yourself. Like we've had this conversation before. Chris Bryant, he's not a top 25 hitter, Adam. He's, for me, 26 or 27. So
yeah,
I just wanted to clarify that as well. All right, continuing on here, having some fun. Tampa Bay Rays in Detroit going against the Tigers. You have Blake Snell as one of our more expensive pitchers going against Ryan Carpenter, who is, I don't want to say he's bad. Well, maybe he's bad. He's not horrible, not god-awful. No, he's still not great. He gives up way too many home runs. Carpenter does. But what's going on with Snell? Are we going to get good Snell? Are we going to get bad Snell? Is there a potential injury lurking here? Because he's given up 2 home runs in each of his, or a home run in each of his last 2 games. But I think he's still given up less than 10 on the year. I think, yeah, he's given up 8 on the year in 11 starts. But the last couple starts have been somewhat disappointing. He started out okay in those games, but seemed to falter towards the end. Still went 6 innings and 6 2/3 in them. The strikeouts are down a little bit, especially for him, with 5 against Toronto and then 7 in a game in Cleveland. He went 87 pitches against Toronto, 104 against Cleveland. Do you want to risk earmarking $11,000 on DK for him when there are just so many other pitchers up there in that price point?
Yeah, he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball. Has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 34.9%. Walks are down year over year at 7.1%. I misspoke earlier when I said that Strasburg was 3rd in PCRA. I had the leaderboard sorted the wrong way. He's still up there, but Snell is sitting at 2.32, which is better than everyone except Garrett Cole this season. 5.1 barrels per batted ball event, or barrels on 5.1% of batted balls against Blake Snell, which is a good number. Everything still points to him just being really, really good.
All right. And then Carpenter, no interest whatsoever, correct?
No, I mean, outside of the fact that in some tournaments I just get cheap pitching, but it's not like someone that I'm recommending for any reason at all.
All right. Then let's stick with cheap pitching that you may recommend. Devin Smeltzer. What the hell happened? He had himself a moment there in his debut. He gets round 2 here against Cleveland. This one is in Cleveland. It's going to be approaching 80 at first pitch. Cleveland has a 4.9 implied run total here. Not the easiest of matchups, but Smeltzer 27 on Yahoo over there on DK, 7,500. I think it's probably a no just because of the unknown on DK, but $2 above the minimum on Yahoo does seem intriguing. What do you want to do with Mr. Smeltzer here?
Yeah, more appealing at that price tag on Yahoo. I don't see the need to go mid-range on DraftKings. He obviously had a very good start his first time out, but Steamer projects him for 6.6 strikeouts per 9. Zips is at 6.8. Even the most optimistic projection system that I'm looking at is that's like 7.5. So, it's not like great strikeout stuff there. Struck out 5.5 per 9 in his 4 starts at AAA this season, 9.9 at AA. So he seems like a decent pitcher, but he's not, expected to be anything great. Fangraphs has him as the 22nd ranked prospect in the Twins organization. So, not anything special there. And it's a matchup against an Indians team that is pretty difficult for left-handed hitters to strike out. So really depends on the pricing, what site you're playing on.
Yeah, Cleveland coming in with the number 20 strikeouts against lefties at 21.1% for their active roster. On the other side, we have the Biebs. He did not make it into that 5-figure club, but he is close at 9,800 there on DraftKings. Somewhat intriguing, but I don't think I really want to go against the Twins. Tough matchup there. On Yahoo, he gets a little bit of a price break at 42, but there are other guys I'd rather roll the dice with a couple dollars up or a couple dollars down. Any thoughts there for the Biebs?
Really tough matchup. Price tag is expensive. it's again, a tough matchup. Not a lot of strikeouts for Minnesota. A lot of really good hitters in that lineup. You can't ignore how good Bieber's been this season. Third highest strikeout percentage on the slate behind Snell and Strasburg at 30.3%. Doesn't walk guys. Reasonable or a good 3.48 xFIP. PCRA is not in front of you. PCRA is 3.42, so it's about a quarter of a run lower than his actual ERA. The only thing that stands out as like markedly worse for Bieber than the guys around him in price is that he has allowed 12.4. He's allowed a barrel on 12.4% of batted balls in play. We know he has struggled with left-handed power in particular, and you have guys in this lineup with Kepler, Polanco, Rosario that can do some damage. So I think, on this slate, you're kind of splitting hairs amongst the expensive pitchers, and the matchup is what scares me off Bieber a bit.
All right, that makes sense. A couple bucks up and a couple bucks down from Bieber over there on Yahoo. You have Madison Bumgarner at 39 going into New York, taking on the Metropolitans. Noah Syndergaard at 45. We should see Robinson Cano back off of the injured list from his tweaked hammy, I think it was, when he was hustling. Low, very, very low implied run total here of 7, Adam. 3.2 for the Giants, 3.8 for the Mets, and it is actually not going to be freezing and snowing in this game. It is going to be 72. That is a pretty darn low run total there at just 7. Usually, if this was in San Fran, I would expect it, but we don't see many 7 flats on the East Coast.
Yeah, two kind of, I guess, good by some standards pitchers.
We call that adequate.
Yeah.
And 2 anemic offenses. I guess that's going to get us there. If you had to choose, would you prefer to roll with Syndergaard against the Giants, or would it be Mad Bum against the Mets?
I would take Bumgarner. I think that they're pretty comparable. I think that they both have good matchups. Syndergaard this season has struck out 24.5% of hitters. Bumgarner struck out 24.2%. Bumgarner's walk percentage is slightly better, but they're both very, very good in that regard. xFIPs are virtually the same, 3.73 for Bum, 3.78 for Syndergaard. One thing that does stand out about Bumgarner compared to Syndergaard is if you look at 2-strike percentage, which is another stat that I like to look at, because in 2-strike counts, hitters hit the ball, the quality of contact is worse, and it kind of strips out some of the noise that you get with swinging strike percentage, especially. 2-strike percentage out of all starters that have thrown at least 750 pitches this season, Madison Bumgarner ranks 6th behind Paddock, DeGrom, Cole, Scherzer, and Caleb Smith. So, it's just one metric, but it's one thing that at least he is really excelling at, whereas Syndergaard is good in most metrics, but nothing really jumps out to where I can point to, he's really good at this in particular, and that could lead to some better numbers.
Okay, let's see, about halfway through here, we've got the Miami Marlins in Milwaukee taking on the Brewers. Pablo Lopez at 6,200 on DraftKings, Chase Anderson 7,200. They are 29 and 39 respectively there on Yahoo. I really am not that intrigued by Chase Anderson, other than the fact that he's going against the Marlins, and they now possess the number 10 highest strikeout rate against righties at 23.7%. Lopez would be the guy I would be more intrigued in. However, tough matchup there going against Milwaukee. They have a 5.1 implied run total, even at 6,200. I think it's gonna be a little tricky to get there because we haven't really run into any offensive environments that we're really going to want to get some hitters from, well, until we get to Texas anyway. But no Coors Field. There's a game in Wrigley. Wind is projected to be blowing out at about 10 miles an hour. It's going to be 70 degrees there. It's going to be 80 degrees in Kauffman Stadium. Wind's going to be blowing out about 10 miles an hour there. That one's somewhat intriguing. And then it's going to be 80 degrees with 65% humidity there in St. Louis. Wind again blowing out, wait for it, about 10 miles an hour. That's going to be a hitting environment, at least for the Reds going against however Cabrera is going to pronounce his first name. But back to this one, I'm still saying no to Chase Anderson. And I don't know that I'll get there for Pablo Lopez. What do you like when you dig into some of their underlying metrics now that we have a little context about who we have coming ahead here, or where we're going to spend on our bats?
It's still a really dangerous matchup and a huge negative park shift for Pablo Lopez going against all the left-handed power in the Milwaukee lineup. You have Moustakas being questionable, but still, Christian Yelich, Grandal, Travis Shaw's back, Eric Dames, and then possibly Moustakas in there. He hasn't been bad against lefties. He struck out 19.8%, which is below average, but he's held them to a 309 expected WOBA, a 137 expected ISO. Both of those numbers are good, but I just don't really know how much upside there is for him against this left-handed heavy lineup that has so many good hitters. If I'm looking to take a significant risk in a dangerous spot, I think more often than not, I can find use for the $1,000 going from Pablo to Reynaldo.
All right. Our next game, we've got Kyle Hendricks and we have Jeff Hoffman. This one is in Chicago. Hoffman actually survived in his last start there on the 29th in Colorado against Arizona. Allowed just 3 earned runs, had a home run, 6 strikeouts, which was nice to see. Again, that was just his 4th appearance on the season, so not a lot of track record with him. He has just, 15 innings under his belt, 12 runs allowed, 3 homers. So it was good to see him have a positive outing there. I don't really want to go to him, but he is priced at 6,900 there on DraftKings. Kyle Hendricks is actually intriguing. We know that when the Rockies are away from Coors Field, they tend to lose a lot of their offense. Now, they've actually improved somewhat this year. They have an 88 WRC plus amongst their active players. Oops, that was just against righties. Let's go see what that is on the road, because I bet it's going to drop down closer to 70. Riveting, I know. Rockies, 83. So they have ticked up a little bit here. That's still not great. So what that means is weighted runs created plus is an advanced metric that neutralizes ballpark factors and creates a league-wide baseline of 100. So putting their 83 against that 100 when they were on the road, again, reminder, that does, again, neutralize for ballpark factors, but they score 17% less effectively than other teams. So it still impacts them more greatly than most people. Kyle Hendricks just shy of making it into that 5-figure club. Does he have enough strikeout upside for you to roll with him there on DK at 9,500?
I can't imagine myself getting to him. I mean, he's a good enough real-life pitcher. I don't even think he's a great real-life pitcher, but he's fine. But, you're talking about in DFS looking for strikeouts, and in the context of the slate, there's just so many pitchers that have higher strikeout percentages, but also, when you talk about like a Noah Syndergaard or a Madison Bumgarner at this price point, they have basically the same low walk percentage as well, with higher strikeout percentages and, matchups that are just about as good. You have Chase Anderson against Miami in the game we just talked about, who's much less expensive and has a better strikeout percentage in the mid-range. It's just not a slate where I see myself getting to Hendricks. Plus, it also looks like the wind might be blowing out, which doesn't help either.
What do you think? Hendricks has 143 starts under his belt. What do you think his ERA is, if you were guessing?
3.6.
3.07 is his career ERA. Yeah. Now, the fact that he strikes out 0.7 per 9 or 0.7 per inning isn't very good. Along with the low, he has a low home run rate. He gives up one about every 10 and a half innings. So, but that ERA is pretty low. The WHIP is 1.1 as well. So, those are really good numbers. Better in season long, especially in ones where you aren't really focusing on strikeouts in the 4x4 categories.
Also, 3.68 xFIP for his career, so I'll take partial credit.
Okay, there you go.
I wanted to point out how close I was to that.
Well, yes, I'll allow it. Much like Mills Lane, I'll allow it. Moving along here, you know what I'm gonna say is allowed in this game here? We're in Texas. It's gonna be home runs. You've got Dylan Bundy at $38 on Yahoo, Drew Smyly at $33. Maybe if you want to roll the dice on Smyly at $33, you can go there. On DK, $74 for Bundy, $61 for Smyly. The only reason I would consider picking on Smyly is picking on Baltimore is just the savings on Smyly. But if you look at it, it's going to be almost 90 degrees at first pitch. You have a 5.4 implied run total for Baltimore, 5.7 for the Texas Rangers. I think we are going to be flocking to this game. Adam, anything redeeming you can say about either of the pitchers?
No, not really. I mean, Smyly is cheap, and at one time Smyly was pretty decent. the Orioles aren't the best offense, but they do have a pretty healthy amount of right-handed power, especially with Mancini and Nunez in the middle. But then, some guys that can be, at least pesky outs with Alberto and VR. Keon Broxton, we know, has a ton of power when he's not striking out. It's just not, great pitching conditions. It's not the easiest matchup. So I think I'll probably be staying away from Smiley, even though the price tag's cheap. And then for Bundy, he does have pretty decent strikeout stuff, but it manifests itself much more against right-handed hitters than left-handed hitters. You have a lot of lefties in the Texas lineup. He's done a better job of limiting power to lefties this year than in the past, but I don't really feel the need to take my chances with that here in Texas.
I'm having major deja vu. We have had this conversation before this season, I think when Texas was in Baltimore. You said almost exactly the same thing. Pretty interesting. I knew what you were going to say as you were saying it. That's pretty wild. In any event, load up on the hitters here. You've got 11.5. Pardon me. Am I doing my math wrong? Oh, I'm looking at their salaries. Yeah, you've got an 11.5 earned run, implied earned run total. Moving along to Boston at the Royals, you have Glenn Sparkmeister Sparkman coming in at 4,700 going against Boston. I don't know if I can even stomach that at 4,700 when I look at that implied run total for Boston at 6.1. Eduardo Rodríguez, potential consideration for him. The Royals have just a 4.5 implied run total. It is going to be in the mid 80s at first pitch. Humidity is up at 70, and it is looking like a 10-mile-an-hour wind heading out. Where did the Royals check in? The Royals strike out 14th overall against lefties at 22.5% with their active roster. Any interest in Eduardo Rodríguez? That $8,000 price point is going to facilitate another bat, maybe 2 upgrades in our lineups at that salary.
Yeah, I have some interest in Rodríguez. I think that and again, it's the night before, so I'm guessing, but I would think that I probably get to a bit more Fried than Rodríguez in that price range. But you're getting plenty of upside if you go to both of them too. The Royals do have some Ks. They're not the easiest lineup, but Rodríguez is a pretty decent pitcher too, and he doesn't really have trouble with right-handed hitters, which is where most of the Kansas City power is going to come from in their lineup. Overall this season, he has a 5.04 ERA, but his PCRA is nearly a run and a half lower. He's allowed barrels on 5.7% of batted balls in play, which is a pretty good number. Struck out 25%. Walks are reasonable. He's a pretty good pitcher. I think he's priced pretty appropriately.
All right. Yeah, I would concur with that one. Sparkman, no interest at all, right?
No, 4,700, but I think I'd still rather just take a chance on Reynaldo if I'm going cheap. I just think he has more upside.
All right. Well, now we're on to a fun one here. Luis Castillo, he is at $10,000, but he's going to go against a very righty-heavy lineup here in the St. Louis Cardinals. We know that is going to be something that's quite helpful to him. We will probably see Carpenter, Fowler, and potentially Matt Wieters, as long as he doesn't hurt himself between now and game time, going against him. What are you thinking about Castillo? Again, it's going to be 80 degrees and 65% humidity with the 10-mile-an-hour wind going out. That's getting into home run weather. Not quite there, but it is on the outside range of it. What do you want to do with the strikeout artist in Castillo?
I think that the discount you're getting on him relative to Snell and Strasburg is pretty appealing. He comes in with just shy of a 30% strikeout percentage this season. The thing that really separates him from Snell and Strasburg and even Bieber, who are the 3 guys ahead of him in strikeout percentage, are that he's walked 11.4% of hitters this season, whereas Snell's at 7.1, Strasburg's at 6.4, and Bieber's at 6.1. So you're taking on a bit more risk there because of the added base runners, but he's been lights out against hitters from both sides of the plate this year. He's struck out 29.7% of righties, 28.5% of lefties. He's held righties to a 231 expected WOBA, lefties to 287, less than a 100 expected ISO to both sides of the plate, 17.1% swinging strike percentage to righties, 15.4% to lefties. He ranks 15th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage this season. He ranks a little bit lower in 2-strike percentage, probably because of the walk percentage. He's 108th in 2-strike percentage, but so again, it's just the real only issue he has is the walks. The Cardinals so far this season, their active roster against right-handed pitching, they have the 6th highest walk percentage, so not the best matchup in that regard. But you're just getting a little bit of a discount for a guy who, while he's not going to be as consistent as a Blake Snell or a Steven Strasburg, he gives you the same sort of upside.
All right, on the other side, we have Hendricks Cabrera. That's Hendricks with an H. Sort of like, I don't know, Jesus. There you go. What do you want to do with him going against the Reds? He is 6,900. Marginal at best pitcher, but or 6,700. Sorry, a little blurry there. 6,700 is an intriguing price point. The Reds don't always have a ton of offense behind them. However, they are likely to run out a nearly entirely right-handed lineup, and they have 4.6 implied runs in this one. Would you consider him for a savings option?
Not with much frequency, at least. He's not someone that I believe in a whole lot. He has a good fastball. He gets it up there pretty quick, but he has issues with walks. He has issues with home runs. You mentioned the weather here. It's getting a bit warmer. The ball probably carries pretty well here. Suarez, I think, is a phenomenal one-off play, or as part of a stack. But you also get really cheap Cincinnati bats other than Suarez and Senzel. Everyone else on DraftKings is below 4K. I would rather be getting to some red bats here than getting to Cabrera.
All right. Speaking of hot, the roof is scheduled to be open there in Arizona, and it is going to be 98 at first pitch. At least it's a dry heat, Adam, or so they say. Hyun-Jin Ryu here, some would say he's just outside of the top tier of pitchers. Your mileage may vary on Twitter. What do you want to do with Ryu here, assuming that the roof is open? And I'm looking directly at the Arizona Diamondbacks roof information page, and it does say it is going to be open for Tuesday, June 4th. Are you gonna roll out there with Hyun-Jin Ryu?
On DraftKings, I probably wouldn't really get there even if the roof were closed. With the roof being open, certainly doesn't help. On FanDuel, they haven't been pricing him quite as high as on DraftKings, so we don't have their pricing yet, but there's a chance that that's where I would want to roster him. It's not a great matchup against Arizona. They do have right-handed power, but Ryu has been excellent this season, especially from a run prevention standpoint. And it's a spot where I think that you kind of have to distinguish between DFS and real life pitching when you talk about guys like Ryu. On one hand, he does only walk 1.9% of hitters. So on sites that take away points for base runners, that does help. But he struck out 25.6% of hitters, which puts him behind 6 pitchers in addition to Cabrera and Smeltzer, who have only made one start apiece. But it puts him behind Snell, Strasburg, Bieber, Castillo, Paddock, and Canning in strikeout percentage. It puts him slightly ahead of Eduardo Rodríguez. And obviously, you just get so many points for strikeouts. So for him to compete with those guys that are striking out such a high percentage of hitters at the same price point, you need him to be really efficient and going deep in the games, which he has been plenty this year. Again, he's been one of the best pitchers in the league in terms of xFIP, in terms of PCRA. He comes in at 2.78, which is very, very comparable to Strasburg. But it's just that it's really tough for me to pay a very similar price tag when he's not getting as many strikeouts as those guys.
All right, on the other side, we have Taylor Clark, 6,500. Not an easy matchup going against the Dodgers. They do have a 5.4 implied run total. This would be more of a price savings play. Clark does have 18 innings up in the show, 3.6 ERA. If we go down and look at his minor league stats, he has 500 innings in the minors. That runs across all the way from low A ball up to AAA Reno, where he has pitched in each of the last 3 seasons. He got a promotion up there 2 years ago. He is definitely fully stretched out here as a starter. That is his calling card, and 3.66 actual ERA in his 500 minor league innings. Just feels like too tough of a matchup for me to want to go to him today, Adam.
Yeah, I think Taylor Clark's pretty bad. And I certainly don't have interest in him against the Dodgers. So the Dodgers, out of all the teams we've talked about so far, are one of my favorite stacks, especially if the roof is open. They just have so much power in general, left-handed power, in particular, which can really give Clark problems. He's only thrown 179 pitches to lefties so far, but he has struck out 8.9% of lefties. On those 179 pitches, he's allowed a 379 expected WOBA with a 204 expected ISO. Everything looks pretty terrible for him, and the Dodgers probably can take advantage.
All right, just a couple games to go. We've got our next one here with Frankie Montas there in Angels Park. He has 4.4 implied run total for the Angels coming against him. He is 10,400 there on DraftKings, 70 degrees there at first pitch. You have Griffin Canning on the other side. He has a $8,500 price tag and the 4.2 implied run total there for the Athletics. Not exactly horrible. Montas, one of those many Oakland pitchers that seems to have a slightly funny name like him and Bassett, etc. But he's had some moments. The Angels are no longer the lowest strikeouts team against right-handed batters, I think. If I looked, I think it's now actually the Astros, just barely. But what do you want to do here? Or maybe that's against lefties. What do you want to do here for either of these pitchers? Because I think I'm okay with either one. Definitely I will be playing the late slate because I am a degenerate when it comes to DFS baseball. But for me, Canning, favorable price point. We've seen a couple nice moments thus far. On the other side, Montas putting together somewhat of a track record. Again, not a ton of strikeouts there for the Angels, but they are coming back from an afternoon game there in Chicago. So this was their travel day. What do you want to do with this game?
I'm mostly interested in Canning. I think that Montas is good. I think he's always been good at preventing runs, and he's added a splitter this year, which is an excellent new pitch for him. The problem is that he's throwing it primarily to lefties. He doesn't throw it nearly as much to righties, and so you get a lower strikeout percentage against right-handed hitters, and then you also get an Angels team that doesn't strike out a lot, and you're getting an expensive price tag on Montas. So, that makes it difficult. But on the other side, you have Griffin Canning, who so far through his limited time in the majors has a higher strikeout percentage against righties or against lefties than righties. But I don't expect that to continue because if you look at the results of his pitches, he's got a slider that he's thrown 48% of the time to righties. He has a 27.6% swinging strike percentage on that pitch. It's been absolutely phenomenal at getting swings and misses. So I expect that strikeout percentage against righties starts to climb up. He ranks, out of all starters that have thrown at least 400 pitches, he ranks 16th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage. That's a stat that stabilizes around 800 pitches. So, it's still fluctuating for Canning, but just that, that's what he's done so far. He's been good in that regard. His PCRA is 3.6, which is, perfectly fine. And I think he's just a pretty good pitcher. Oakland doesn't have a ton of strikeouts, would be the only problem. But, I think, again, if you're looking for a couple of mid-range pitchers to get some more expensive bats, Canning is a perfectly fine option.
All right. Next game, we do not have a Mariners pitcher listed. We do have one Wade Miley. I was just looking to see. Let's see. Did you know last year he did not allow more than 3 runs in any of his 16 starts?
I did not.
That's pretty good. The season before that, he had 7 starts where it was 5 or more. And several of those were 7 and 8. I just wanted to see where he was at this year because he's one of those guys that we're like, we want to pick on him, but then sometimes he does not quite give it up as often as we would expect. This year he has 1 game with 4 runs, 3 games with 3, and then those can't all be starts, can they? It looks like they might be, and then 5 with 2 or less. So his last 2 seasons, he has allowed more than 3 runs once, Adam. And that's coming in 28 starts. That is not what I was expecting to see.
Yeah, he's made some pretty big improvements with the addition / improvement of his cutter. Really doesn't give up much power at all to righties anymore. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts either, though, which is what still keeps me from getting to him once his price tag comes up like it has right now. So
I was more interested in, let's take Haniger, Encarnacion, Domingo Santana, throw in Tim Beckham, maybe Tom Murphy. Yeah, I don't know that I want to do that now.
292 expected WOBA, 155 expected ISO to righties this year, 290 and 119 since last season. He throws since last season. He's thrown his cutter 44% of the time to righties. He's allowed just a 127 expected ISO on it. His changeup and curveball are giving up no power either, and then he only throws his fastball about 10% of the time. So not as easy a matchup as it used to be.
All right, final game of the night. This will be a good one. Take a chance here. Fire some shots at our fellow Osmo contributors here, Chris Baggs and Jake Hari. Jared Eichhoff, 7,100. They both like Eichhoff I don't know where, and I know they both like him more than normal, and they've said that several times. I don't know where you come in on Eichhoff. I get a little, I don't like him at all. But this is a matchup against the Pod Squad that has not been overly daunting recently, even though their home runs have been ticking up. I think it was this weekend I read an article. There have only been 8 seasons. I don't even think it's 8 individual players, but 8 seasons where someone has hit 40 or more home runs as a Padre since they moved in Petco Park. That's not very many in that. But how are you feeling about Eichhoff? Or would you prefer to go, is it Paddock on the other side? Yeah, Paddock's on the other side at $10,000 on DK.
Yeah, I like both of them. You get a right-handed heavy Padres team against Eichhoff, who has struck out. He's been better against righties. This year he struck out 23.3% of righties while allowing a 293 expected WOBA compared to 19.4% of lefties with a 338 expected WOBA. Since 2017, he missed most of last year with injury, but since 2017 he struck out 23.8% of righties. He is just better in that side of the split. He's very reasonably priced at 7,100 on DraftKings, and while the Padres do have power, they also have a lot of strikeouts. So I do like Eichhoff quite a bit. And then on the other side, you have Paddock against the Phillies, who they're an offense that'll make you work. They have the 4th highest walk percentage against right-handed pitching, but they also have a 22.6% strikeout percentage against righties this year, which puts them, around the middle of the pack. They've been about an average offense across the board. Paddock has been pretty good as a rookie. I don't know that I get to him over, like a Luis Castillo at basically the same price point, but I think that he's fine. When you factor in price, though, I think that I probably end up with more Eichhoff than Paddock.
All right, I'm going to have to give that some consideration. Perhaps he will make the cut in the deep dive. That is the premium article that is going to be written by Adam, covering all of the key baseball plays that we have coming for us on Tuesday. I'm guessing with this many pitchers this close together, the article will have more of a lean on describing your or trepidation for some of these pitchers at their price point.
It'll most likely be one where I write about a higher number of pitchers. Not saying I'm recommending them all, right, but just kind of laying out the stats, because I think that it's most important that people have the information to make their own decisions. When you have people that project as similarly as a lot of these pitchers will, it doesn't really do you a service, especially with it being an article that you're paying to read behind the paywall, for me to just say, like, these are the guys, and then not tell you about all the other very comparable guys.
Right. And the other thing with 4 different sites here in play between DK, FanDuel, Yahoo, and of course Fantasy Draft, pricing slightly different. Well, it is at least on 3 of them. So that could be some nuances as well. So just something to keep in mind, because this is one of those slates where it's like there aren't that many slam dunk pitchers to go against. There aren't that many slam dunk pitchers to take. And the guys in the mid tier seem reasonably priced, but they don't have exactly easy matchup. So this is going to be one where you're going to have to consider some lineup construction, figure out what you want to do with your hitters. We did mention that out there in the Midwest and Texas, there's 3 really good spots with some weather that should be more conducive to higher scoring. But again, that didn't really happen on Sunday at least towards the later innings when the bullpens came in. But Texas and Colorado weren't really scoring for first 6 innings of their games. But just keep an eye on that. Home runs are king, but strikeouts are incredibly important as well. So you can find out what's going on the DFS strategy show. That will be at 9:30. That will be Dave Lochran and Josh Engelman there on Tuesday. You'll get the deep dive, as we mentioned. That'll be behind the paywall in Tuesday afternoon. And then you will get the deeper dive with Laffy and Adam in front of the paywall.
Laffy and Alex. It'll be Laffy and Alex.
Laffy and Alex. There you go. You've been Wally pipped.
Yeah. Got furniture moving in.
There we go. A man of means now. A man of means. Make sure you get... never mind. It's a family podcast. But then you got Live Before Lock as well. So we've got you covered. You can follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS over there on Twitter. I am at EMACDFS, and it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.